Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to our first panel discussion for the day. And this panel will brainstorm on future of work, new concept to explore. And it's an honor and privilege first to introduce and welcome the members of this panel. Suraj Moraje, Chief Executive Officer, Quest Corp. Sumit Mitra, Chief Executive Officer, Tesco Global Business Services and Tesco Bengaluru. Navneet Bansal, Chief Executive Officer, JSW Global Business Solutions. Venugopal Arcot, Director, Solution Consulting, ServiceNow. Sumit Sachdeva, Chief Operating Officer, Omega Healthcare Management Services. And this session will be chaired and moderated by Sumit Salman, Partner, Deloitte. Sumit, over to you.
Thanks, Ivan, and I appreciate you clearly identifying the Sumits and Sumits on the panel. Appreciate that. We were just discussing that there are three Sumits in the panel, so we'll make sure that when we speak to each other, you know who's talking and who's going to be answering the questions. Quickly, I'll just add a couple of more introduction points for myself and for the panelists. As you heard, I'm with Deloitte. I'm a partner with consulting with specific focus in helping organizations think through their globalization of services, whether it is technology or processes. And with me, I have an esteemed and versatile panel of from the BPO industry, which I think everybody has seen very closely over the last 2 decades. We've been growing maybe 7 to 8%, at times even 10% over the last decade. And as if I read the NASSCOM report recently, are employing almost 4 to 4.5 million employees, including technology in that group. So there's a lot of discussion points today, but before I go ahead, let me quickly address my panelists. I know you introduced, but a couple of additional points so that you know the stature of the folks who are talking. All of them are fairly experienced in the IT BPO industry. So Sumit Mitra, Dr. Sumit Mitra is the CEO of Tesco, and which you all know is one of the largest European food retailer. The important thing is Tesco Business Services, which is here in Bangalore, is actually admired as 20 most admired GBS in the world by SSON. Prior to Tesco, Sumit actually set up and ran BT's GBS division also. So a lot of experience behind Tesco too. And he's currently accountable for managing Tesco's core functions, which support 90 million shopping trips per week. Wow. Navneet is the CEO of, again, one of the captains for JSW Group, and will probably bring in some bit of color from the perspective of manufacturing. Areas where we possibly would argue may be technologically less penetrated. He's a CA with more than 22 years of experience, largely in consulting and outsourcing, and worked for both domestic and international clients. Incidentally, JSW Shared Services has won the best shared services in the Indian domestic market. Congratulations, Navneet. Venugopal is a director in solution consulting at ServiceNow, covers both India and all the SAARC countries. And we've had some conversations before, so he seems to be very, very passionate about people and culture and how that becomes a key ingredient with respect to innovation. And I think he'll bring that color and context as we go through the next 50 minutes. Venu's also passionate about driving quality, and we spoke about it, and there's something behind him, which if you want to just go and read about. So he's leading that initiative in his organization. Suraj is the group CEO of Quest, which is incidentally the largest employer and leading BPO across grey-collared activities. We've seen a lot of action from Quest recently. I'm a Bangalorean, so I visit the Bangalore airport so often and see Quest everywhere, Suraj. So good advertising at the airports. So that everybody is aware, the focus for Quest has been on facilities management, temp staffing, payroll processing, and such. Sumit Sachdeva, he's joining from Chicago. So thanks a lot, Sumit. And seems like you're the most well dressed among us, wearing a blazer. I'm not sure if this is the US aspect, but in India, over the pandemic, we've kind of shed our blazers already.
Well, I got a chance to wear it.
So, Sumit is the CEO of Omega Healthcare, a leading service provider in healthcare sector, providing services to both the hospitals and the physicians. He's a veteran in healthcare and leading multiple transformative initiatives at Omega. So, thank you again, guys. Thanks. Let's head into our conversation. I was reading one of the reports recently over the pandemic. If you look at all the CEO calls in the narrations which have happened post the reports, their quarterly reports, half of them have mentioned innovation in their speeches, in their quarter end commentary. And innovation can be driven out of multiple ways. One of the things which we can talk about is how innovation impacts our business, specifically the way we deliver our work, manage our workforce, and manage basically from the recent pandemic perspective, the workplace and work from home. And we're going to be talking about that. The way we think about future of work, the topic itself is fairly wide. And over the past decade, all of us are aware that we anyway have been going through a certain amount of change, whether it is because of the demographics or globalization, aspects around technology interventions, the social issues, even the workforce expectations. Some of it has been pushed and I would say accelerated by the recent pandemic. Because the canvas is wide, we'll try to focus on 3 or 4 specific areas. And you can't just talk about work without speaking about workforce and workplace. So we're going to cover that in 3 different dimensions. So let me first get started and take a step back and maybe talk about the industry as a whole. If you think about the BPO industry and the impact we've had from work perspective, a lot of it has been accelerated due to the pandemic, as I mentioned, whether it is the digital interventions we've seen at our organizations or at the clients. So I'm going to invite some of the panelists to kind of speak about what did they think and what is the impact they've seen and how are they managing this impact of late. Could I maybe request Sumit Mitra to maybe get us started on this topic?
Thanks, Sumit. Just for everybody, just give you a little context of Tesco. We are a food retailer, and whilst a lot of organizations around the world have been impacted adversely, we have had actually quite a positive impact. And being a food retailer, it's a very resilient business. Our volumes went up significantly, but with that volume comes a lot of added responsibility. Just to give you a little bit of context, our online business went from 650,000 orders a week to 1.5 million orders a week, which made us the largest online food retailer in Europe. Our basket size doubled in size in terms of, and our volumes at one point in March, April, when we had the first set of lockdowns, went up by almost 70%. And that had really an impact on our GBS model. Just to give you a context of UK, in the UK, our store colleagues who were supporting our customers in stores, we had almost 52,000 colleagues off sick or were diagnosed as critical, or they were, they had symptoms of COVID, which meant that we had to go around and hire 48,000 new people. Typically, to hire 48,000, it would take you about 6 to 9 months at least. We hired them in 3 weeks. In terms of volume, it created a real volume into our GBS model. Our call volume in our contact center in Dundee went up by 512%. So we had to go and hire 800 new colleagues to deal with the call volume, where our customers were anxious and asking for store opening time, social distancing measures. We had to open new stores, which we call the Nightingale stores, to support our NHS workers who were supporting the health system in the UK. And all the design planning of those stores typically would take 3 to 6 months, was done in 3 days to support NHS. Our payroll volume, because of the 48,000 new hires, went up by almost 72%. And because of the change movement of shifts, etc., that caused a lot of volumes. And as you can also imagine, as a retailer, in January, February, March time, we do a lot of promotions, bulk buying, multi-buying, because after Christmas, you're kind of, the revenue goes down. So you want to entice your customers with a lot of promotion. But during pandemic, you want to stop bulk buying because you want to make sure food is available to all. So my team over a weekend had to take off 6 million promotion in a weekend, because 100% of all the promotions is done by my team. So this caused sort of a significant turmoil within the business, real volume increase. And then on the same breath, we had to ensure that all our colleagues in Bangalore, Dundee, Budapest, Slovakia, Brno, they all start working from home. India poses different type of problem. I'm sure some of you have faced that, where a lot of our colleagues did not have broadband at home, and they were doing hotspot on their mobile phones. So we had to do a rollout of 700 broadband lines across colleagues' houses. All this really caused a lot of volume increase, as I said. But what was important was shifting the mindset of our colleagues from profit to purpose. And what we did was we galvanized our workforce to ensure that they're connected to this purpose, to say, this is our responsibility to feed nations. And that's really helped us to kind of gear up and get ready and support the business to feed nations across the countries that we are in. Hopefully that gives you a context.
Yes. And incidentally, we did a recent survey where, to your point, in specifically in India, 85% of the CXOs actually said they were surprised by the resilience and adaptability showed by the employee pool and the workforce here in India. So kind of connects to the point you were making. You guys went through a whole lot of disruption, positive disruption, I would say, but the GBS was able to handle it well. Maybe I'll pass it on to Navneet from JSW perspective. If you could give us a color on how did you brave that pandemic, specifically with focus on changing in the way you looked at the workforce as well as the work itself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So a 30-second overview of who we are. So JSW is largely a steel manufacturing company, as you recognize it. But we also are in the space of cement, infra, we generate power, we make paints now, and we also own Delhi Capitals, Bangalore Football Club, and Haryana Kabaddi team, just in case you don't know. So
Delhi
the
Capitals
GBS. Sorry, say it again.
I was just kidding. I said Delhi Capitals is well known.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Right. So coming back to GBS. So see, we created GBS to support all these group companies around 4 years ago. And since it happens in most of the domestic players, there is a slow and steady appreciation which happens for outsourcing. Not an overnight thing that we decide to create a shared center or outsource it. In my view, what has happened is this pandemic has actually created and increased that overall appreciation for outsourcing work. Because we were among the fewer companies in the groups who could actually adapt to this change very quickly. Within first 48 hours, our 100% of staff was working from home. By the way, working from home is not a normal culture in Indian manufacturing setup. but we were the first to actually adapt to it. We transported desktops to employees' homes. We configured Wi-Fi's. All of that happened in first 48 hours. And more than that, we went beyond our mandate of managing typical and standardized activities. Since a lot of our plants and factory workers are out because of this pandemic and they were not on the shop floor, GBS was actually one who was looked at to pitch in and support on those activities as well, which were not in our scope otherwise. So what it has resulted in, it has actually increased the uh, respect and appreciation for GBS employees in the entire group. And they now recognize that, yes, this model is extremely resilient. We can bank on this model in the time of crisis. And why not now consider GBS for further expansion and look them as a go-to shop for more and more critical activities. So I think this big mindset change has happened. And I would like to believe that if it has happened in JSW Group, I'm sure a lot of similar manufacturing clients would have thought in the same fashion. So clearly, I mean, people and employees have gone through a tough time, but they have generated a lot of respect and a lot of appreciation from the group companies in a very, very short span of time. I would say, I mean, that's a bigger change which I've seen when it comes to domestic outsourcing.
Certainly, a definite change in the working model, I guess, from the manufacturing perspective. Let me maybe invite Suraj in the conversation. Suraj, we were discussing a couple of days ago, with you working across plethora of different areas. The technology interventions, possibly may have been accelerated in the last 8 and 9 months, or with your organization and with your clients. Could you maybe give us a color from the perspective of what are the changes you're seeing in the way you deliver work, and with maybe some focus on digitization or technology interventions?
Absolutely happy to. Look, I mean, I think we see the BPO industry from two sides. I think one is we are a BPO player. So we're India's second largest domestic voice player. We do payroll processing. So we are a BPO player ourselves, but we're also then suppliers into the BPO industry because we're India's largest tech staffing firm, for example. We're a large perm recruiting firm. We do payroll, we do facilities management. So we see it from both perspectives. Look, I think, Sumit, as I was saying the other day, I think one has to be careful because COVID is a little bit like a puppy that's run through Rangoli, right? It's sort of, everything's gone up in the air. It's landing down in different places. Part of the Rangoli is intact, like Sumit Mitra's Rangoli. Part of the Rangoli seems to be fine. Other parts of the Rangoli are completely shattered, and you're kind of figuring out now, what do I do with this? And so I think we need to be careful not to take too many short-term sort of data points and kind of draw too many straight lines out of them. But at the same time, I think conceptually, in a sense, COVID has done something profound to us, which is literally every single company is 100% a BPO today, or at least was during lockdown, because each of us was literally working from home and were a factory of one, delivering processes virtually. And so in a sense, I think what it's done digitally for business, is any business today can literally outsource an activity at the snap of a finger, because frankly, they're managing it virtually today. So distance is no longer an issue. And that's a big mindset shift in India, isn't it? As Navneet said, which is that a lot of Indian companies have believed if I don't have my people under my nose, things are going to go wrong. But the fact is they've not had people under their nose for 9 months and things have gone even better. So I think that there is a capability and admission that is a kind of, let's say, a step change in that. Now, having said that, I think that what will change and what is changing is this mindset of greater virtualization. And we see it when we get demands for staffing, for hiring, and we see it in our own customers. I think virtualization at three levels. One is obviously a lot of GICs today are seeing even greater demand to move stuff to India. because people are saying, well, if employees working from home, might as well offshore them and get the cost arbitrage. So I think it will certainly be good for India at the first level. At the second level, we're seeing a lot of demand or a lot of GICs coming to us, BPO companies come to us and say, can you do a talent landscape in Amritsar or in Mandya? Because they're kind of saying, well, given that we're sort of more comfortable now with virtualization, should we go to other places and open facilities? And by the way, most of them are talking about opening facilities. We're having very few players come and say, can you, there are some companies, some new age companies who say, find me 10 people, don't care where they are, just find me 10 people and get them on my roles. For example, to do creative work and the like. But by and large, people who are expanding are still talking about facilities and setting up facilities because, and I'll come back to that. But so I think there's virtualization in terms of pushing more things to tier 2. I think there's virtualization in terms of just virtualizing more activities. We're having inquiries from, for example, distribution companies who are saying, maybe I don't need people going and knocking the door on every Kirana store. I can call the Kirana stores instead and see what they need. So people are experimenting with what can I take off the front line and make more remote. And then finally, I think it'll be good for work from home. Now, to what extent work from home is going to be permanent, I think your guess is as good as mine. I think some of this is going to be driven by end customer comfort. We sense a lot of our more traditional customers still want people back in the call centers for reasons of data security, for reasons of fraud management. And frankly, a lot of our tasks are a lot of the people we hire in the BPO industry need supervision. Now we can talk about how you supervise them remotely, but at the end, the best way to supervise is still in person for some of these skill categories. So we do think that a lot of it will move back. Our own domestic call centers, about 40% back to the office already. Where that will land, I think time will tell.
There's an interesting debate going on, Suraj, on this whole aspect of supervision itself, right? So if you look at the the pandemic time, and then the way we've been structured pre-pandemic, those traditional hierarchies have actually fallen, right? So you spoke about factory one, and that's a very good input you've given, right? So almost everybody looked at this whole more independent way of working. Autonomy was the name of the day, and we were actually handing more autonomy to our folks on the ground, right? But of course, it comes with a certain set of responsibilities, and that's where the debate is, right? So, if in one way you say that we've actually accelerated the whole aspect of autonomous working, independent way of thinking, and working on the ground in the BPO industry over the past 8 months, should we go about utilizing that trigger and continuing in that so-called growing culture of independence or autonomy? Or the other side is the supervision aspects, right? A lot of folks in senior leaders like you actually give your middle management a lot of credit of having managed and supervised the work without fail over the last multiple months. And hence, do we need to support them with multiple tools and technologies to be able to continue helping them manage their scope of work? So you could either double down on further monitoring, or you could move towards the so-called autonomous stage. And of course, the answer is not Boolean. It depends on the work profile we have and the capability and the maturity of our centers. But I want to introduce that debate and see where we are. Sumit Sachdeva, maybe if you could chime in on this, and I'll definitely seek out opinions from the others after that. On what side of the debate would you be on this?
Yeah, sure. I think hello everybody. First of all, so I think it's also a matter of, as you said, going hybrid. What I mean by that is it depends on the process. It also depends on the kind of talent that you have, right? When you have people that are capable of managing their process on their own, when they have that kind of maturity level, you would have more autonomy coming in. But at the same time, you have processes and you have set of people that are, that need that kind of supervision. And so you would need to go down that path too. So I think as we move forward, the way we are looking at it is there's a segregation in some perspective that is, at least we feel, is going to happen where, there would be a set of people that you would want to hire, bring on board, that can run on an autonomous level. And then there are processes that you would run where it would be highly supervised, etc. And then, there are tools that are there, even in those processes, to manage it, even if you are from a remote standpoint. So I would say that that's, probably the way to go about it. And it's a reflection of it, I would say, in the sense that, while we talked about, people are now starting to open new centers, etc. We at Omega took a very quick shot at it, and in fact, we actually let go 2 facilities of ours right during the pandemic period. We took a decision that we will continue to be remote, from a work from home perspective on a long-term basis, at least for a set of people, for a set of processes, etc. And then get down to how do we enable those set of people, those set of processes in terms of doing that, right? So it's a mindset. You've got to, get down to it and start solving for it. I think there are models available for both of them to happen.
Thanks. Yeah, please. You are on mute, Sumit.
Sorry. If I may add a little bit here. I think there is a word of caution here as well, because there are a lot of organizations around the world who are sort of making statements that we're going to go full 100%, remote working, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is, how do you create a culture? How do you, all the new recruits that you will bring in, existing is fine, but how do you maintain and build a culture of your organization and connect it to the culture of the overall mothership? It's really important.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't think either or is the answer. We need to kind of think more, have a more paradoxical thinking, where how do we bring in different types of working? Like, for example, collaboration. If you're working in technology, 100% remote working or 80% remote working is not going to work, because you work in an agile environment, you need to collaborate. Also in certain processes, if you're driving a culture of continuous improvement, Kaizen, etc., it's really important that you collaborate, you do those whiteboard sessions, you understand how the processes work. So I feel, if technology is the answer, which a lot of people say it's the bullet train for everything, I think you need to build the tracks. And the 2 tracks for the bullet train to run on one would be the culture and one would be your processes. And that requires a lot of collaboration. So I think from my perspective, it's a hybrid model we should look at. One is there will be a bunch of colleagues who doesn't have the right environment to work from home. They're living in small apartments, especially in India, or living with a larger family size. So how can they come into office and get the right support and infrastructure within the office? Then there's the second kind, who would come in maybe 2-3 days a week and work 2-3 days at home, and then come in when needs to be collaborated. And then there is also the third kind, who has the right infrastructure, who can work without supervision, who can work full-time in office, at home, but also they need to come in a couple of times a month or whenever the business requires to come in to collaborate and make those things happen. And with that requires a change in people policy, change in contracts, change in benefits and facilities in terms of how we keep our colleagues engaged.
Yeah, fair point. And I think, as we said, that the spectrum doesn't have any right or wrong answer. And I think most of the organizations will possibly try to find a hybrid which works based on their cultural as well as organizational needs. And nobody can take away. We all grew up building our own social personal currency in our organizations, right? So on the job training is very important. You build your name in a team setup. So more so in consulting, and I'm sure it's true in every team-based conversation. Let me bring Venu in the conversation, right? Culture is something she's very close to, and he's working for ServiceNow, which actually is a dominant player in building one of the tools which supports, I would say, middle management and senior management dashboarding and such. So where are you on this in this spectrum, and any views on your end and how we can deploy more tools to support the organizations?
Sure, Sumit, and an amazing insights from each one of you. ServiceNow is a platform, a purpose-driven company. We say we make the world of work better for people. So how do we automate these processes? And during these pandemic, and my conversation with rest of the community is unprecedented parameters around two aspects: access and availability. And there is a higher access and high availability on one side, and no access and no availability as well on the other side. This high access and it also gives us a new opportunity to lead in terms of, I would speaking to a company which was a BPM company which was into airline business, and this airline business had a low they had a low NPS score, and they said they needed a separate center for managing COVID-related issues, integrating with multiple systems. There's a new opportunity. With regard to COVID vaccination itself, you would see that there is a surge of new opportunities, right from patient to citizen engagement, vaccine administration, vaccine allocation, provider management, and along with that, the regulation aspect as well. So in terms of managing all of these things is a huge opportunity that is going to come in the way. And that's one part of the opportunity side, and there's so many things to talk about it. And today, on the other side, while there is access and people work from home, there is also a risk associated with that. How do we manage those risks? How do we manage that risk from a proactive basis and also long-term basis? How do we ensure there is business continuity, and what happens to those discontinuous things, what happens from a people, process, technology? These three elements remain to be most sacred in terms of how we work and engage. So we are working with almost all the companies in redefining their strategies in terms of increasing their revenue in newer dimensions. As I mentioned, some of them, supply chain management, procurement, logistics, all those contact points have become contactless. Technology and digital is a key enabler in making this happen. And then we have an access into reach to people whom we do not have reach to. The lowermost and the rural community that we have not accessed also. Today we are having access to those online platforms on automobile. So these are opportunities, and we are helping our customers and customers in the BPM industry to expand their revenue generation capabilities, as well as manage the regulatory posture in terms of where they are and how they can manage this in an environment that is important for them as an organization and in line with the regulatory requirement. Over to you, Sumit.
Thanks, Venu. And want to invite if there's any other comment. Otherwise, I want to change topic on this and cover one of the areas which I think Sumit Mitra brought about already. Any comments on this? Otherwise, I'll move to the other topic.
Yeah, one small thing. Sumit. I think Sumit Mitra brought up a very valid point, which is about culture and about collaboration, which are two very critical things, right? And if you look at it in terms of how we, when you talk about an autonomy versus supervision and the workforce per se, the spend and the alignment of the organization, to make this hybrid, as I was talking about, work is going to start. It has to happen across the board, right? Right from how do you get people on board? How do you engage with them? How do you keep them on? How do you define that culture? and how do you create an infrastructure of collaboration? So probably one of the thoughts could be that, instead of creating these massive centers where you have 5,000, 10,000 people, mingling together into one area, probably create smaller centers across the city and reduce the amount of time people are spending traveling to these big centers, big places, and create them as collaboration centers, as an example. So I think there's going to be a fair amount of innovation once we, start the next phase, which is the whole, I would say, the COVID scenario, starts to settle down, the vaccine is in, etc. I think there would be, we should start seeing a fair amount of innovation on that front, which would be starting off from this point onwards.
Fair point, Sumit. I'm working with a few other clients in their workplace at this point. And to your point, they're looking at certain pods in their offices, which teams will visit based on need. And instead of having the cubes and the cubicle type workplace design which we had earlier, there are walls of collaboration which will, I was repaint the way in which actually we possibly interact with our employees and colleagues. Suraj, you had a view there. Would you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just want to link it to Sumit Sachdeva's last point, which was, I think we're sort of shifting phases. In a sense, so far we've been driven, work from home has been driven by fear and a need to protect ourselves. And I think we now need to shift our mindsets to thinking about work from home from a position of strength, right? I myself, I've had a lot of time to reflect on this. I've been coming to the office first 1 day a week starting June. Today I'm in the office, let's say 4 days a week. I actually don't want to come on the 5th day because 1 day at home I actually find good to kind of get transactional stuff done. But I find coming to the office has been addictive in a sense. And I never expected that. When I started, I thought maybe I'll do 2 days a week in the office and I'm done. So I think, one reflection is, this is very obvious, but our workers are also human first. And I think we got to reflect on the place, on the role of the workplace, right? In terms of growth, in terms of exchange, in terms of communion. I also think attrition. I actually suspect, one of the things earlier that would give some of our managers a sign that someone might leave is they take a day off to take an interview. Today they're taking interviews in between calls and you have no clue. I think just that bonding and that common sort of, we're together. I've got friends in the workplace that keep me there. I think that's an important element. I think Sumit Mitra called it culture and he's right. I think there's more that we have to do as leaders, and this is a conversation we're having internally at Quest also. What do we have to do as leaders to lead our people in this process? To discover what is the right way, how much do we get back to work? How do we give employees comfort that they're safe? We've done a lot in our facility to make sure, like these damn security registers, everybody has to come and sign. We've thrown that away so that people feel they can come, not have to touch anything when they come into the office. Thinking through how do we get UV machines going through the office so that people feel there's a different kind of cleanliness here, making the offices more biophilic. So I think there's a lot of thinking around that has to go into how do we give people comfort? Because frankly, what I'm finding in the last few months is the people who don't come in, some don't come in because they're far from the office and some want to be there with their children or with their parents. And those are very good reasons to be there. But many of them are scared to say, if I come to the office, will I fall sick? And I think how we lead that is going to be important. That's the only point I want to add.
Yeah, Navneet, I would love to hear your points from the manufacturing perspective.
So just to add to what my co-panelists just said, see, we also have been debating this particular thing. On a funny side, before this pandemic, work from home used to be a good tool to arrive at a good work-life balance, right? But now, more and more of our employees are coming back and saying, it's too much of work-life balance imbalance when I'm working from home, and especially female employees. We always used to think that our female employees would need some extra bandwidth to manage their household affair and office affair. But believe me, most of the female employees I've been talking to in my organization, they are saying we are actually struggling. We are more stressed working day in, day out from home, because since we are at home, we are expected to deliver 100% work, as well as we are expected to take care of homes as well. So in our case, if I'm not exaggerating, almost 80 to 90% of feedbacks which are coming from employees is that they would want to come back to office at an earliest opportunity. Now, it's the way how we look at it. I mean, if you're looking from a top-down approach, yes, we tick all the right boxes when we say people can work from home. It says we have a lesser infra cost, we have more work-life balance for employees, travel distances would be reduced, all of that. But the moment we start looking from bottoms up and we start checking with employees, a lot of employees are saying that no, we would actually want to come back to office and work from office. Now, how do we make that balance? Because now we are used to that surrendering of facilities and reducing our infra costs, etc. So what JSW actually is in a very serious discussion that we would want to bring all our employees back to work, but probably we will do a double shift kind of thing. Rather than working in single shift, we may want to go for double shift so that we can optimize our infra costs, etc. But clearly the message which is happening internally in JSW is work from home for everyone long term may not be a viable option, because it is affecting psychologically all our employees, their mental health, their ability to connect with their managers, social connect, whatever happens. Those are becoming a problem.
Thanks. I, I have to ask this question. I was having a conversation with one of my youngest consultants in the team, and he said, if you're talking to the senior leaders in the industry, why don't you ask this question? And this question is regarding gig economy. There's all the young people today. They're not settling into a career the way we used to settle into our careers, or in fact, into an organization. Their view of careers and in organizations is very different, right? The recent survey says 50% of the young folks will leave you in 3 to 5 years, right? So with that in mind, and there's a lot of gig work which is coming in, especially in US, is coming in India also. So the question on our table is, as leaders in this industry, which employs the largest workforce, what is our view of actually reaching out to the gig workers with, of course, certain set of constraints, which we have from the perspective of IP protection and risks associated with it. What would be a view? And anybody can answer. Anybody, please share a view, because that will also impact the future of our workforce, right?
Sumit,
Suraj, so Sumit, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I think a few years back, I don't think we would have even imagined that we would be sitting in somebody else's car and going to the airport or whatever, right? And paying them for it, right? Or staying at somebody's room, apartment, or whatever, right? And renting it out for a few days. I think eventually, there were so many constraints if you think about it, but those constraints have been overcome and things have moved. I believe that aspect in our business is also going to come. And you can see signs of it already, which has been happening at least in the US environment for quite some time. So for example, I know of a few companies locally here where people come in, they are empaneled to work on a particular process, and they come in for a short period of time, and they would log in that, hey, I'm going to be here on Thursday between this time and this time, etc. And they come in and do the work, and they get paid on the amount of work that they did, and that's about it. And they have a certain volume which is available, and these guys would come in, and you can pick and choose what time slots are available and when do you want to work, and what kind of volume you would be able to manage and stuff like that. So I think there are pieces of it that are already happening. in bits and pockets. And I believe that, yes, there are several constraints as we see it right now. But eventually, innovation will come in these areas too. That would be my view to it.
Flipkart picked this up during the. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no.
If I may add what Sumit just said, this is not something new. It's going on. You as a GBS organization or a shared service, whatever you want to call it, if you don't augment your resourcing and leverage the environment and the ecosystem around you, you're not going to be successful. So in the past, traditionally, we used to call them Infosys or Wipro or Tech Mahindras and TCSs of this world. So you have a project, you bring in, you set that project up for a third party, and they come in and do that piece of work. Whether it's 3 days a week, 4 days a week, it doesn't really matter. You give them a work package, you give them an output, they go and deliver, and you pay money for it. So now we need to think about, are these individuals, those individual islands and companies that's going to come and help you? So it's a shift in mindset in terms of working with a MNC versus working with individuals. Like, for example, Israel, Tel Aviv is becoming a real, not becoming, it's been there for a while, it's core for innovation and software development. So there's a real opportunity to tap into and crowdsource some of the problems that you're trying to solve within your business and having them come in on a short-term basis to help you. Why not in India or any other country?
Yeah, why not stretch the argument of factory of one, like Suraj mentioned, to the gig workers, right, Suraj? Maybe a last comment from you. I know we are 2 minutes over, but they're allowing me to 1 more minute. So any last comments? Would you go ahead and extend the factory of one to gig workers?
I actually think that the gig economy is going to radically transform how we work. I really think so. In India, so first of all, we're one of the fastest growing sort of alternate employee countries in the world, alternate employment countries in the world. And what we're seeing during the post-COVID recovery is many companies are choosing to actually scale up via task-based payments rather than time-based payments. Now, it's not hit the BPO industry yet. We haven't seen it happening there. But the new labor laws give it, kind of do say this is a legitimate form of employment if you're able to distribute tasks via a platform. I think technology allows us to pulverize tasks to such small levels that actually you can farm them out and reconstitute them. It's no longer a manual process. So I think it'll change. In the next 5 years, I think it'll change quite drastically. The question we have to ask ourselves is, to what extent is gig, I think it's got 2 or 3 applications. I think you can use the gig economy to handle peaks. Because today, technically, you could get someone in for 4-hour peaks and pay them per call. Well, once the new labor laws come in and say, look, I'm actually kind of paying them on that's a gig platform-based job. And so help you manage those peaks and troughs better. The danger is, will it actually force some people out of sort of stable daily sort of, kind of monthly wages into more task-based and therefore add uncertainty to people's lives when they're not actually asking for it. And I think that is the balance we as a society have to, and business leaders have to think through in a very conscious way.
Sure. Venu, any inputs from your end?
Yeah, I think well said. It's an experience era. The era is moved from era of utility to productivity to engagement, and now it's experience. We go all of these things in our personal lives. We have to give this at the office for the Gen Zs, the new. They have never seen what we have seen in the past, but this is something they will experience as they see at home, at work. And there is a redefinition of workplace happening. The space is even more sacred. It's sacred in our culture. It's even more sacred. And it will continue to be in coming times. But how do we maintain, manage, and give all these possibilities for this new generation to make them innovate and experience a new way of work and make this work successful for our customers? I think with this, I will leave it to you, Sumit. Thank you very much.
So we've extended our time, gentlemen. So I could continue for another 1 hour, but we are limited by what time we have. But I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think I really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully everybody in the audience did too. And I want to thank all the panelists for joining in. Hope to keep this debate alive. We discussed multiple points with respect to workforce, work, gig economy. I'm enthused and excited about where this industry is heading. So with that, good luck to everybody and stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Sumit, as you mentioned, that was a very rich discussion where some great insights were tabled on the future of work and new concepts to explore. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking time off your busy schedule and joining us on this summit. And thank you, Sumit, for doing a fantastic job of moderating this panel. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the second poll question of the day. Please minimize the player button so that you can view the poll question to the right of your screen. You will have 60 seconds to choose your option. Post the poll results being displayed. We will be back on the other side with the next live session. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there is an incentive for you to visit the Verint booth, our partner booth. 2 winners from all those who visit the Verint booth and engages with the sales team of Verint will be announced at the end of the event. Each of the 2 winners will win a Taj e-voucher worth rupees 2,000. So please do visit the Verint booth by clicking on the exhibition room button. See you in a couple of minutes on the other side with the next session.